back. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll get Cynthia back on. I love this. Technology, how amazing are we? Thank you guys for tuning in. This is fun. I could talk to Cynthia for hours. Let's get her in there. What a great conversation. I've loved learning about creative people, and I'm particularly interested right now in costume design. I'm not a costume designer. I did design costumes it's different, for ballet, tap jazz, so definitely different than film. But this is such an awesome conversation that we're having. So... I just have a few more questions for Cynthia, and I'm sure you guys will be interested in those answers.
Yeah.
Oh, and it worked, and we're back.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah, no, it's
I
fun.
love it.
It is fun, especially during this time of COVID, because listen, I'm
Yeah.
so bored at home by myself.
Oh, I know. I talk to my mannequins.
Yes.
When I'm draping. I'm like, oh, that's not right.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they have good information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It worked out.
Yeah.
Oh, well, great. Thank you. I do have a few more questions for you.
All right. Let's do it.
So the other thing I was going to touch on is sustainability. That's a big buzzword, it seems, right now in the fashion industry.
Yeah.
And so you're an advocate for eco fashion. So could you tell me what that means?
So eco fashion in film is difficult for lots of obvious reasons. Time, availability. Availability is multiples in what you need, because we never go to camera with just one outfit. There's always at least 3 of the same thing for getting through the day. More if there's stunt doubles, more if there's photo doubles, and there always is stand-ins. So and there's going to be more multiples that are going to be needed once we come back from COVID, because I don't even know how we're going to shop. I don't know what we're going to be doing, but we'll figure it out.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah. How would you?
Yeah, it's going to be hard, but we'll figure out a way. That being said, I haven't used fur for a long time, or maybe even really ever. Probably I shouldn't say not ever, but I can't remember the last time I used fur. And you don't need to anymore. The faux fur that's out there right now is like amazing. It's so amazing.
It looks real.
It looks real, and the selection is huge, and the availability and getting it is super easy. So if you're creating faux fur, like building something out of faux fur, that's easy. And also buying fur coats is easy. Vintage is harder. Trying to find something that is new vintage looking is harder. But in any case, I don't use fur. I try not to use leather. I'm pretty successful at it, but there is the occasional time where I have to have a black leather jacket because the director wants it, and or there's a need for it for some reason, that I have to acquiesce and purchase that. If I'm lucky, I can find it repurposed, which means I'm not buying new. So and that's for footwear as well. It's much easier now to use sustainable footwear. I'm vegan, so I don't wear leather shoes. I haven't for a long time, and I love shoes. And after the L word, I had a closet like you wouldn't believe. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I got rid of everything. I didn't have any fur, but I got rid of everything that was not vegan. So
when did you become vegan?
I've been a vegetarian most of my adult life, and we're going into my 6th year as a vegan. So yeah.
Was that tough?
Sorry?
Was that a tough transition to go, I'm not vegan or vegetarian?
No.
So
No, okay. It wasn't. And it's like anything, once you get over, I don't want to be preachy here or get too much into veganism, but I think it's easier to be a vegan now. It's easier to eat as one.
Mhm.
Ethically, it's super easy to be a vegan because all you have to do is look at factory farming and leather goods and where they come from and how they're made, and uh, even sustainability as far as labor goes. There's nothing good about it. So
Mhm.
sorry to anyone, but
No,
anybody
that's
who
good.
wants to
Yeah.
know and learn, I think the fashion industry, of course, is trying to step up and
Mhm.
be more visible with their products and where they get them from and how they're processed and who does it.
Mhm.
From child labor to women in factories and et cetera, et cetera. So I try not to use any of that. I will use silk I don't wear it, but I will use it. I know I have had actors and actresses who don't wear silk or wool.
Okay.
Yeah, or leather or fur primarily. So that's tough. But then I do have actresses who will wear leather shoes if they're not bought specifically. And this sounds maybe a little weird, but if you think about it, it's not bought specifically for their character for this moment. And that
Mhm.
makes sense. So that lends into repurposing. So there's something you can do on every level as far as ethical fashion goes and ethical costuming goes.
Mhm.
So you still can use leather shoes, but if you can find shoes, again, it's going to be the multiples. It's going to kind of be
Right.
hard, but if you can find leather shoes that are repurposed, that are either vintage or just not brand new, then you're helping. You're not facilitating the um, fast fashion industry, which is killing the
Absolutely.
planet. So
Mhm.
um, so there's that. And it's pretty, there's so many actors these days that don't want to wear any of that anyway. There's so many
Great.
people that are vegetarian or vegan,
Mhm.
especially women. And it just makes my life a lot easier. If you're doing something period, it can be a little more challenging. If you're doing something like the amazing epic Series C, which is, or even Game of Thrones, or
Oh.
something that is the fur
Mhm.
and everything. I mean, that's a tough one because
Mhm.
authenticity sometimes matter. It matters. So that's tough. If sometimes when it's period, it's rentals.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
if you're not doing something where you're slashing and burning everything, then
Mhm.
and if it's a period piece, then you can rely on a lot of rentals, and that's especially for your background performers. So that that supports the ethical movement. So yeah,
Excellent.
yeah,
So you said rentals. That's something that people might not know about
right.
costume and film. So talk about that.
Yeah, historically, rental's been very extremely important, and from everything from period to contemporary. And a lot of it has to do with authenticity if you're doing period. A lot
Mhm.
of it has just to do with volume. And if you've got a large crowd scene and it's, I don't know, the early 1800s or the late 1800s, and you have a large crowd scene, you're probably not going to be able to build all that.
Right.
So you'll be able to pull from the rental houses, and that's
Mhm.
everything. That's millinery, that's hats, all the undergarments. If you're doing corsets, all the overskirts, the coats, the petticoats, everything, shoes, everything. So that also helps you with budget
Yeah. Oh,
because
that's great.
it's really important to stay on budget as best you can. And that's the business side of filmmaking that is sometimes conflicts with the artistic side of filmmaking. So yeah.
Do you have somebody that helps you with the budget part of it, or is that
Yeah.
your role?
No, it depends on the size of the production, but generally within my team, there is myself, an assistant costume designer, a
Mhm.
costume supervisor or coordinator. It's the same thing, but just called different things in Canada or the US. And the supervisor slash coordinator is the person who does the budgeting or tracks the budgeting and makes sure that we stay on budget as best we can. Or if if something changes in the script and all of a sudden we have 150 background that have to be dressed from head to
Oh,
toe, well then the budget's
yeah.
got to change. So they stay on top of that. They also deal with a lot of crewing. So
Mhm.
if we do have 150 background, we're going to have extra people, extra costumers on set to dress them all. So, you know, that the supervisor will sort of keep a track of how many people we need for any given day. So it's all about scheduling. It's all
Mhm.
about sometimes ordering. We do a lot of online ordering for things. Yeah, and just keeping the crew all where they need to be and when they need to be there.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
There is a lot
There's
involved.
a lot involved. It's like a big
Yeah,
machine. It really is. It's
yeah.
not just showing up with you know, sketches and mood boards and giving a great pitch and then going shopping. It's and everything has to fit into a day.
Mhm.
So you know, we got to
Yep.
call.
What's a typical day, or not a typical day, but what is it like for you when you're
It's
really in it?
Yeah, it's kind of two-sided. So there's the prep team, and
Mhm.
then there's the on-set team. And in indie world, you kind of that's small. Like there's maybe 4 people in the department. It can be like that, depending on what the movie is. And a lot of times the prep team becomes the set team. But on you know, network television or the streamers or in feature films, there's a prep team and there's a set team. So the prep team starts work much earlier on than the set team, obviously. And so, you know, that involves us getting scripts, us breaking down the script. So someone has to actually put the script into a program and break it down for our costume purposes. So every department does that. Set, the AD department, everybody puts that into their program for their departmental needs. So for us, we break it down into script days, who's in
Mhm.
what scenes on those script days, what they're doing in those scenes on those script days. So what their costume needs will need. Are they starting in the morning in pajamas and then going to school? And then do we see them in pajamas at the end of the night? Or are they still in their school clothes? Or if they thrown a sweater on, or etc. Are the shoes on or off? So we break each character down into um, their own their own breakdown. Basically, we call
Mhm.
it a breakdown, and we do that for the whole series, or for every episode, or for the film. And then we do everybody, and then you have a page, and you have a page to get a costume for that page, basically. So then we have meetings. We discuss if we can narrow it down. We don't have to have so many script days, which means there's less costumes, which is great usually. And then we have to shop, whether we're shopping fabric to build, or
Mhm.
shopping contemporary, or shopping fabric to build contemporary, because you don't always find what you need in the stores, so you make it. How many are we making? How many are we buying? How many photos or stunt doubles or stand-ins do we have? Or what's happening? Is someone throwing ketchup all over someone? So how many multiples? How many times are we going to try and do that for camera? 3 times is usually the norm. So we need 3 of those costumes just for that. And then we need the backup for the actor, and then we need this photo doubles. And are we throwing ketchup on the photo double? Then that person needs 3. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
you know, a giant equation that we have to put together, and then we kind of arm ourselves with all that information, and then we go out shopping.
Wow.
And
How much time do you get to do that part?
yeah,
Like all of that prep work?
not enough. It's
Ah.
never enough, because often also we don't have our cast until,
Oh.
you know, a week, you know, if we're lucky, if we have them a week before they go to camera. If
Wow.
it's a recurring guest star, so someone who is not in every episode, if we're doing episodic, and they're going to be in, say, 6 out of 12 episodes, they'll probably come in the day before they work.
Oh my gosh.
So we have to fit them the day before they work, get their looks approved by producers and directors, also have the cast feel comfortable in what they're in, then get any of the alterations we need done, any of the breakdown, like aging and dyeing, that we need done
Yeah.
before they show up. And they usually show up pretty early in the morning the next day. Like usually, you know, they're going through the hair and makeup early, 6 a.m. is
Yeah.
like normal. It's usually kind of a 2-hour turnaround for them to go through the works before they come into costume and go to camera. So it's it's really busy. So time
It's
wise,
fast.
for something like Lemony
Yeah.
Snicket or Altered Carbon, we had a big prep in TV land. But you have to remember too that these are on Netflix, so they're on streamers. So it's not, network like NBC or Fox. It's bigger. So we had 24 days to prep for each block. We did 2 episodes in each block, and we shot for 24 days.
Oh my
And
goodness.
whenever I tell anyone that, everybody's like, oh my God, that's
Wow.
so much prep time. And I'm like, I know. But look, we made everything. We made everything. We had the shoes built. We had all the millinery done. We had all the outfits done, all the undergarments done. So that's, in TV world, that's a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Normally,
think it's a short period of time, not in
yeah.
TV world. Like, oh my God.
Normally, and in some shows it's even less, but normally it's 7 days, 7 to 10 days. And that's how long they shoot the episodes. So you have 7 to 10 days. Some of them are shorter. Some of them are, like Babysitters was shorter. We had 5 days.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when you're working with kids as well, kids work shorter days than adults. They have to have breaks for school during that day. They also have to have additional like 15-minute breaks every, I can't remember how long, but because of child labor laws, which is great, and they should be like that. They don't work days like adults work. So you have less time, and which means I don't get a fitting with them every episode either. So I have to do many more looks within one fitting to try and spread it out over a few episodes, sort of like build a big closet so that we can sort of choose from as we shoot. So feature film is better. Feature film is, also episodic's a grind, man. It really is. It's a grind. It's I've been in rental houses and have other designers or people working there going, man, you episodic designers are like queens.
Yes.
Because
Wonder Woman.
It's kind of crazy. Feature film is way more user friendly usually. Depends on what the film is as well. If it's a huge build film, and you're shooting globally, in different locations around the world, you can also still be prepping and building things as you're shooting. But I want to say 2 months to 6 months, depending on what it is you're doing, which is great. It also, inevitably though, it always feels like you don't have enough time because everything changes and is fluid, and you just have to be able to, you have to have a big toolbox to be able, and big closets to be able to sort of switch things over and have a sort of catalog in your head of things that you have, like different pieces that you have. So if something is changing and it's going to work tomorrow and you're going to get that actor in today, and the AD can bring them in like in half an hour, are you ready? You just have to be ready. So
yeah.
And then you have to riff through it and make the actor feel, comfortable and like you're on top of it, and you're facilitating their look. You're not just slapping something on them, which is important, obviously. So it's a big dance. It's really, and those moments can be thrilling and really eye-opening and really surprising, because when you're under that kind of pressure and in those kind of time restraints, it's really amazing what you can come up with, because you don't have time to mull it over. You don't have time to, and you have to be really quick. You have to see it in your head, and you have to be really quick to get it on somebody's body, and know that if you put it on the body and the actor has to feel it and be able to know that they can get in front of camera and portray their character as well. So, you can put it on the body and I can think it's great and I can think it's wonderful. And if someone starts doing this,
oh no,
or if they kind of slouch, they're not feeling it. So you try and talk them through it, give them an idea of why it's necessary or why it's important. But also that if they don't feel comfortable, then you have to whip up something else. You have to come up with something else, because there's nothing worse. I liken it to watching a celebrity on a red carpet in a gown that or shoes that they can't walk in, or they don't feel comfortable in, and you can tell. You can tell in 2 minutes there doing their, doing their red carpet moment, you can tell that that person does not feel comfortable with what they're in. So they can't portray themselves. They can't be their selves, and then they can't be their character. So that's the designer's worst nightmare. And that's not what you're there for.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that was going to be one of my questions. How do you overcome those situations if somebody's standing there like not into what they're wearing? How do you do?
The worst is are actors that are quiet. And some
Oh,
people just are. And
mhm,
some people, actually, like myself, I like to look at something and
mhm,
internalize it for a minute or a heartbeat
mhm.
before I say or do anything. And then I'm usually an explosion like I am right now. Um, and for me, the reverse of that is the worst for me, because people who are too quiet, I feel like I have to overcompensate for their quietness, and I have to help them through it. And I do that, but you have to find the right moment. I mean, really learning how to do brides, learning how to
Mhm.
do dancers and dance moms and dance teachers. It's all really, or runway, or yes, runway or runway shows. I mean, learning how to do any of that and how to get people psychologically through their insecure moments or their
Yes.
moments of of confusion, or their moments of not totally feeling it or not understanding is a large part of the job. It's like a really big part of the job, and that comes with maturity, and with some people are born with it. Some people are great at it right from the get-go, and some people have that but need to hone it. And people skills, it's people skills, really.
Absolutely. And I like how you just said it comes with maturity too, because
Yeah.
I myself, you're almost like a therapist
You
when
are,
you're in
yes,
those fittings,
you
but
are.
I would take it personal as if they didn't like the design, but you can't take it that way. You have to understand that it's just not for them.
You can't. I've got some great stories of actors that I uh, for lots of reasons, there's been a moment where there's been a costume, and for me it's been like the the period after this, after the sentence. It's like this great moment, this moment that I can give you, and they don't like it, or
Oh.
they're not feeling it, or I need to change it. And I have this great story with Jennifer Bills, whom I love, and we're still friends. And it was on the L Word, and it was the end of the first season. We didn't have any money in the first season, and so I built a lot because I couldn't buy the Dolce and Gabbana, and I couldn't buy the Gucci. I couldn't buy it all. So I made her. At the end, I bought her a Dolce and Gabbana suit, and I spent I blew the bank on it, and it was like her final look, and I thought, okay, this is great, and I can do this for you, and for Bet, I can do this for this last, because we don't know if we're coming back and whatever. Well, let's just do this. And it was a beautiful suit, and it had these suspender pieces that went from the lapel to
Mhm.
from the lapel to from the shoulder, from here to here on the lapel, here to here on the lapel. And and I thought, it's a really classic, beautiful dove gray suit. Is wonderful. And here's this like fun kind of edgy piece on it. And it was sewn on the top and then clipped on the bottom, suspender clipped on the bottom. And I was like, you need to see Jennifer in her trailer. And I was like, oh no, okay. So I go to the trailer, and she's like, I don't feel it. I feel like Janet Jackson. I don't feel like, or something like this. It's not verbatim, but I feel like Janet Jackson. I just don't feel it. And they're waiting for her on set. And I'm like, okay, I don't have time to argue. I'm like, really? Because like, this is for you. This is for Bet. This was like my one thing I could give you at the end. And I was really, and she's like, I just don't feel it. And I'm like, okay. And I stepped out of the trailer, and I asked my truck costumer, I said, bring me the scissors. And she brought me the scissors, and I was a little bit mad. But I couldn't be mad because she needed to go to work and I needed to fix this. And I took her big sewing scissors and I cut them off.
Oh my gosh.
And I just looked at her, and she just looked at me, and I went back to the truck, and I probably said a few things. And then she went and did her job. And to this day, we laugh about, because I kept those two pieces.
No, oh wow. What a moment.
Right? And those
Wow.
moments happen. And what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You've got to,
Yeah.
you got to make it work. And it can't be about my ego. At that moment, so that's almost 20 years ago now. So no, it's not that long. 15, I guess. And
Yeah.
at that moment, I was still young, and I in the business, and I was hurt. I was like, I was hurt, and for me, this was a moment for me to, like, shine. Like, this is my fashion statement moment at the end of the series, at the end of the first season for this character. And it now it wouldn't bother. Now I get it. It would bother me, but I would do it, and I'd
Right.
be much better with it than I was 15 years ago, where I was a bit crushed. To be
Oh,
honest, I was a bit crushed, but we got over it. And then,
yeah. And that's a good lesson.
lesson, yeah, it was a great lesson. So, yeah.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. What was your longest project that you've worked on?
Uh, whew. um, well, it would be a series, and I'm trying to think of which was the longest. And it might have been the L Word, or, gosh, which was six seasons. So
Yeah.
almost 6 years, 5 years. We did 6 seasons in 5 years. So that probably is the longest.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Girlfriend's
I
Guide,
just,
Girlfriend's Guide was long too, but I don't think it was, maybe it was 4 years. So, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's so amazing everything that you do, and the fact that you have kids, I just absolutely love,
Yeah.
because you are my third interview of ladies that you all have children, and you're doing these amazing things even early on in your careers, and you made it work, and I just find that so impressive. I do not have kids
Yeah.
just yet. That's been an interesting conversation. I'm scared to do it because I'm afraid that I won't have the time. And what advice could you give on that?
Oh my goodness. Did you say you listened to that podcast with,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
So I touched on that.
Hmm.
And I think for me, I always knew I wanted a family. I always knew I wanted children. I always knew I wanted more than one. I didn't know how
Hmm.
many. I had a big number at the beginning, and that's silly. Don't do that. I mean, do it if that's your passion, but you don't need to. So I always knew I wanted children. So for me, it was never a question of how do I make it work? Like what comes first? And that's part of my personality as well, though. Because I'm just like all in. I'm just like jump in and go, okay, here's an opportunity. Okay, let's do that. Okay, here's an opportunity. Okay, let's do that. Okay, let's get pregnant. Okay, let's do that. And part of that is naivety. And part of that is not overthinking. Because I think if you overthink anything, whether it's, whether to have children and have a family, if that's a part of your life and what you want, having a career, what kind of career do you want? Do you want a job where which is more a job just to facilitate your being a parent, or do you want a career? Like they're all questions, and you might not know the answer to them until you're in it. And
Yep.
I think after my third child, I became a single parent. And at some point in that process, my thought was, if I'm going to be the sole breadwinner in this family, and that means I'm going to have to do it forever, because
Hmm.
who else is going to do it? So I have to do that for forever. So if I'm going to be working forever, I want to do something that I love, and
Yes.
something that, and I don't even know what that is. Like I actually never, if you had asked me then, I would never told you that would wind up in the film industry. I didn't even know what that was. Like I didn't know what that was. So I kind of went with the flow. I knew that I wanted to be an achiever in whatever I did, in whatever way that made sense. I mean, I had this fantasy earlier on when I had my first child, that I would be a stay-at-home mom and just paint, because I painted then. I don't do that anymore. I don't have time, but that was my fantasy, and that was short-lived, and obviously that didn't happen. So I evolved. You just keep evolving.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you want to have a family, I mean, if someone is waiting, maybe that isn't
Right.
what you want, and that's in anything, whether it's starting a family, or whether that's, where you choose to go in life, who you're with. If you're hesitating for too long,
Right.
time will factor into that in some way. And,
Yes.
maybe that's not the answer for you. Maybe that isn't truly what you're feeling inside. And it's really hard, I think, for people to live their truth, because it's
Mhm.
hard to know what your truth is, and your truth will change as you evolve as a human. So, and as the world changes. So, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. You did, and I think people in the creative fields, I think a lot of people are afraid to have a family because it's like something that you keep quiet. And you touched on that in the podcast.
Yeah.
For people that want to know, it's Go for Parents podcast, Spotify. It was a
Yeah.
great conversation,
Yeah.
and I'm happy that people are talking about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in creative, you just keep it quiet.
Yeah. It's, and the film industry is an industry. So,
Mhm.
and it's definitely changing, as far as everything is changing, but it's definitely an industry run by men,
Yep.
and an old guard, an old school, situation. And it is changing, but it won't be changing. It won't change in my lifetime to an equal working place as far as gender goes, or who's running the studios. So to some degree, it is like, it's also all in. The industry is all in. So I think when I first started, and it was suggested to me that I stop talking so much about my kids, because for someone who's hiring you, and this is probably true also in other businesses that are outside of film, um, you know your boss wants to know that you're dedicated. And
Right.
often having a family, whether
Right.
it's a traditional setup or not,
Hmm.
that's viewed as a distraction.
Yes.
And so the question is, so you're a single parent with 3 kids,
Right.
how am I going to feel comfortable that you're all in and you have the time to dedicate to this project? And so that sort of gives me the insecurity of well, maybe I shouldn't working twice
Right.
as hard, or thinking that I have to work twice as hard to prove myself. Um,
Hmm.
the same ways a lot of times women find they have to work twice as hard to prove themselves qualified for a man's job. Um, so it's tricky, but I think
Yeah.
that, as I said in the podcast, as a department head, and I want to know what your situation is. I don't need the details, but I want to know what I want to know so that I can help you, or
Right.
our department can sort of facilitate. Um, I'm not going to be shocked if you have to say, listen, there's been a trouble at home and I've got to go get my kid from school. My husband can't do it. The nanny, I can't find her, or, whatever. Like if something really, if you need to go, I just want to
Mhm.
know your backstory somewhat so that I can say, okay, so I'm not shocked. And then I'm not
Right.
thinking, well, I would like to go as well. Like, I don't want that to happen. I don't want anyone else to feel that,
Hmm.
because everybody has situations that they may need to go deal with during a work day, and most of us can't do that.
Right.
So I don't want to, it's hard even to talk about, because you don't want to,
Right.
you want to feel like you can help people out in their
Hmm.
situations, and family is so important. At the same time, you don't want there to be jealousies within, well, if that person gets to go, and you also don't want to be taken advantage of as a boss
Absolutely.
or the situation. So it's so information is important. And I also, in the podcast we're talking about, there is some job sharing that happens within my department. I don't love it, because
Hmm.
it's more difficult for me and the rest of the team if I've got different people in that one job. But we've made it work, and
Hmm.
we've made it work because the people who do the work in one specific job I'm thinking of at the moment, they're really good, and they're more valuable to me part-time than
Hmm.
somebody else. And so I would rather facilitate 2 part-time people in one job. Not all of it, and not all the jobs can do that. I can't do that with the people on set. I can't, that doesn't work. But my point, I guess, being, where you can, you have to be flexible, and
Yeah.
you need to, people have families, and people have situations that arise, and you just have to be human. You just have to put a
Absolutely.
human aspect to this,
Yes.
especially in a business like film where we spend so much of our time at work,
Hmm.
traveling to work, getting there, going away with work. I mean, there has to be a human. I mean, hopefully everybody has family, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be one or the other anymore. You
Yeah,
don't have to.
yeah.
That's great.
I think as a society, we've come to a point where in North America,
Hmm.
it's different in other places as well. Family is more valued. Here, it's more work is valued more than family. And I think that's shifting, and I think it's important for us to try and integrate that
Hmm.
in our day to day.
That's great.
Yeah.
Touching on what we're talking about, shout out to Jess Zano. I spoke with her last week. She started out as a stylist in the entertainment industry, and now she's an entrepreneur. She created a company called Omnico, and it's childcare
Oh,
for working people. It's on the West Coast.
oh, great.
She started a group called the Jane Club with an actress, and I feel really bad because I can't remember her
Oh,
name. But
this all
yeah,
sounds
so
familiar to me.
yes,
Is she in LA? Is it an LA based
yes,
thing?
yeah,
Yeah.
and Omnico, and it's supporting entrepreneurs and creatives, people that you need that base to help with your kiddos. So
Yeah,
that's a great.
definitely.
Hopefully that'll keeps expanding.
Yeah, yeah.
Times are changing.
I think that's important. You know, my oldest son is a firefighter, and my daughter-in-law is an RN, and you know, it's interesting. So here's a parallel, not in the
Yeah.
film industry, but it's the same thing. They're shift workers. They're, you know, especially during this time, they're busy people, and there are groups like that that facilitate first responders first, and their long
Hmm.
hours. Here, where I am in Vancouver, at least, I hope that's available to first responders globally. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it's important, and I think that yes, don't not have family because you.
It's scary.
Yeah, and then take your kids to work. Not all the time, but
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh, I love
And yeah,
that.
you know, when they get older, if you can work with them, I love working with my daughter. I love it.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
great. I
yeah,
love that. Oh, great answer. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, thank you so much for all of this. The last thing I just wanted to mention, I asked you, what is something that you want to do? And you said a vampire film, and that sounds so much fun. But did they just release another, I think it was another novel about Edward's point of view, so
Oh,
maybe
did
that's
they?
something
Oh,
for
maybe.
you.
Well,
Yeah?
listen, I'm going to put you in touch with my agent. Thank you for that.
We'll see if I can help. I don't know. I'm very good at reaching out to people, so
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yes, vampire. I kind of feel like I missed the boat on that, and that makes me very sad. I'd
maybe
love
it's
to do
coming
a
back.
I'd love to do a period vampire.
Cool.
That would be my dream.
I would be into that. I love everything period. I
Yes.
love costume.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation. This was so much fun. I
Oh, my
appreciate it.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for reaching out to me. I'm, you know, and this during this time while we're all kind of trying to fill our time and finding new things to do, it's been really um, a joy for me to speak to people that I don't know. It's really
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. It really is. It's really it's eye-opening. It's kind of broadened my world, and really sort of I love speaking to people like you who are not in the industry, but you know, sort of have something in common with the industry, I guess. So it gives us a point to sort of start a conversation, um,
Yes.
but sort of go off, and it's definitely broadened my world. So I thank you for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I don't want to go. So I'm trying to think of how to end this. You're amazing, and
Thank
thank
you.
you. And
You are too. Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
have
Thanks
a great
everybody who
day.
joined in here. And hello, Spain. I see you. So friend of mine that lives in Spain, who's an
Excellent.
amazing, not a costumer anymore. I don't think you're still doing costume, but anyway, she's an amazing artist living in Spain. She's Verchun, Verchun on down there. So go check her out.
I will.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Okay.
Well,
Thanks so
thank
much.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.